Joining us on the line, we have the man who was a founding member of the Moody Blues, as well as Wings, and Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Denny Laine joins us. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I'm good.
And
Right.
if I have my information right, you actually sang lead vocals on that song.
I did, yes. Many moons ago.
And that was the first big hit for the Moody Blues in '64, right?
It was the first number one, for sure, yeah. Yeah. It happened during the Chuck Berry tour. We were out promoting that song at the time, and people came to see us live. It went up the charts, so that was good.
So you were on tour with Chuck Berry?
Yeah, we opened for him. Well, we didn't open for him. We closed the first half. It was a tour with a few names on. Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce were actually on that tour. Oh, they were the opening band.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you really came up at a time when, music was in a period of flux, because people were seeing, the second generation of rock and roll. They were really seeing where they could push the limits of this sound. And certainly the Moody Blues took it in a different direction. Wings had all different types of genres that they covered within the course of the band's history. I mean, you really had the opportunity over your career to create a lot of different kinds of music.
Well, yeah, that comes from all the influences we were getting. I mean, at home, I got influence from my sisters. Were into music, and they had all sorts of different style of music for me to listen to. I was into jazz, Django Reinhardt, stuff like that. And what we did was we amalgamated all those styles so that we could be a little bit more original. You don't want to be going out there sounding like everybody else, and that's what it was like to start with. So that kind of inspired everybody to write their own material and just go in their own direction. That's what happened with the Moody Blues when I left. They got rid of their suits, and the way they just went to America and got into a whole new thing of doing their own material. And thank God they got successful at it. That's what you have to do,
Yeah, I mean, was there a time, though, in those early days, were they trying to package everybody, post-Beatles, were they trying to package everybody to kind of be that type of a group?
Well, not really, no. I mean, the thing was, the bands made the decisions, not the record companies, not the managers. It was always the band. And if the band wanted to do what they wanted, then they'd either have to go along with it, or you'd go somewhere and find somebody who would go along with it. That's generally what it was. All that trying to mold people into doing things was a different, I think that was kind of a slightly different era after that. But in the early days, we had our own people. It's like the Beatles had their own roadies. They ended up being the managers and whatever, So that's the way it was. We had control. We had that kind of control over our music, at least, So that's why we did it. We wouldn't want anybody else telling us, "Oh, well, you got to make a record to follow up that one. It sounds just like it." That's what people do, and that's fatal, to do that. So you just go in your own direction, and like I say, that's what makes you successful, I believe.
And it does seem like there was a lot of collaboration between the musicians, especially in England at that time. Everybody seemed to be working together and seemed to be, appearing on other people's tracks. And
well, yeah, I did, because the thing was, we had our own group, they had their group, but we used to work together a lot. So we'd kind of influence each other a lot. There was a lot of bands that, you do doubles, you go into the cafe on the motorway and you see the Kinks van out there, or you knew these people from the clubs in London, and parties and things like that. But yeah, I didn't work with anybody really, but I suppose there was a bit of that going on, but generally it was just, a friendly competition between the groups, that's all.
Sure.
And I know a lot of those people to this day. It's just great guys.
Well, you mentioned Ginger Baker. I know that you had a band with him for a while.
Yeah, like I say, that again came about as a result of me and a friend of mine from the Move being down at Steve Winwood's cottage for his birthday, and Ginger and Eric were there, and we sat down, played with them a little bit, and like I already knew them, you see. So when Ginger wanted to put that Air Force thing together, he kind of got in touch with me and said, "Do you want to put a band together?" I said, "Well, I'm in the middle of something, but sure, I'll do whatever you want to do for now. And that's the way it works. It's word of mouth, really is.
So let's just talk a little bit about how you got into music to begin with. You had mentioned all the influences that you had, but what was the process like for you to be, actually become a recording artist?
Well, there was a lot of bands in Birmingham, my hometown. You got to remember it was after the war. It was all the factories where everybody came to. They made a lot of the war material in these factories. And my parents worked in these factories, and we were all on the estates there. And a lot of the kids were into music, because we used to get music from Radio Luxembourg, and it was aimed at the American Forces Network in Germany. So we got a lot of that American music. And that's kind of what we followed. We kind of took a few things from that and then made it our own and then brought it back here. so it was like that. But yeah, the influences again were always there. We're all friends, they're all competing, and everybody would just talk about music all the time, and you'd see people in music shops, and it's just a buzz really. London was better when I got down. There was a lot more going on there, but to start with, Birmingham was it was bubbling under. A lot of things came out of it eventually.
And certainly that era of music, of course, we call it here in America the British invasion, but we really put a focus on the great music that was coming out of your country during that time.
Yeah, because we always say this, but you gave it to us in the first place. We just changed it and brought it back. I mean, in that way, you see, I don't want to say it, but we were more open to all styles of music from America, whereas like over in America, it was more confined to different, areas. You know what I mean? You got your music from the South, you got Chicago blues, you got New York, you got all these different things going on. And half of the time, especially the blues, wasn't that, popular in America in the early days. But, not commercially. But it was to us. And we toured with, like, Sonny Boy Williamson and a few people that were over in England at that time, at marquee artists we were with that. And they dealt with all the blues players. So, it was like we could get away with that. And then we were influenced by that. And then we kind of brought it to America, Same with the Beatles. They just listened to everybody's music and then wrote their own music in the style of what they were listening to. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and speaking of the Beatles, in 1971, you form Wings with Linda and Paul McCartney. And listen, I know that, some of these acts we're talking about now, we talk about them as legends, but, in the time they were just your contemporaries. I think there probably was some pressure in your mind, I would assume, saying, well, I'm going to be in the band that Paul McCartney's in after being in the Beatles. I mean, that must have been kind of a daunting task.
No way. You see, I know Paul way before that. I met him in Birmingham when I had my own band. We opened for the Beatles in Birmingham. When we got down to London, first people we met was the Beatles up in a club in London. So a high-end club, we walked in, there they were. So we knew them all. We used to, like I said, we used to have parties. We did their second British tour. They weren't. And so we knew them. So that's all there was to it, really. It wasn't daunting in any way for me because I knew Paul. I mean, if he'd have got somebody who didn't know him, I don't think he would have wanted to do it because he doesn't want to be treated like a superstar, especially up in Scotland where he all started. He wanted it to be friends, people, and Denny Laine, of course, was the first there because he was on Ram, the album. So he knew me, so that's why he called me, because he knew I could do the job and I wouldn't be in awe of him, because that would not have worked. And anyway, I'm not in awe of anybody, sorry. In the best possible way,
Sure, no, I totally understand that. But with Wings, you were able to create a lot of great music, and I think because of looking at songs like Mull of Kintyre, you can get away with putting songs out that people would look at and say, I don't know if that fits as a pop song, but because you have the McCartney name and because of what Wings became, you really could be experimental.
Absolutely, you could. But there again, you had to have the guts to do it. It doesn't matter who you are. It's not, when Paul had the idea for Muller Guitar, and I went over for breakfast that morning, it was in Scotland. He didn't want to finish it because he thought he might get some backlash from the Scots, So I said, no, come on, man, that's great. So we wrote the words the next day, and it was a huge hit. And we never expected it to be, but it came out, at Christmas time. We did a major TV show with it, and it just went huge. So, and it never came out in America. That's why I really don't understand why they didn't put that out as a single over here. But like you say, it wasn't considered, a typical pop type song. But you got to remember, we don't think like that. We really don't. That's for marketing people and record labels. We don't think that way. We just make music, and if we like it, we put it out, or we'll say, we want this out. That's really the way it is. And they don't really, say no. But you have to have that thing of knowing what you want out there. But, that was an example of something that was a different style. But, come on, I mean, everybody likes it. I play it now on this show, just because I co-wrote it. So, I mean, I play it and everybody loves it, but it was only on the Wings Over America, the Wings, hits album. So that's it, but that's one example of something that you do it and see what happens,
Well, and this is a big year for Wings music. This is the 50th anniversary of Band on the Run. So, I mean, looking back, 50 years of an album that has become one of the greatest albums of all time. Is it when you think back, does it feel like it's been 50 years? You still hear the music all the time?
No, it doesn't feel like 50 years at all, because you got to remember, one remembers the good stuff that you did. I mean, because and especially when we're talking about it all the time in interviews and whatever, it's always out there and it's all over YouTube, all that stuff. So all the stories are out there. And, well, like I say, what I'm doing in this show is kind of fill in the gaps, with a few little, ideas that aren't well known, but about the Band on the Run experience. And, yeah, it was great to just go. Anyway, Ginger Baker did have a studio in town, which we did go there one day. But it was just great to go and be a part of that Africa music scene and near my studios. And we just did it, the three of us. That's what you do, You don't think of it any different than that. You just kind of go and get on with it. And then it turned out to be a great album, but we never really, what's going to happen. And it's certainly not just because Paul's Paul, because it doesn't always work that way. It's got to be good stuff. It's got to be, and he always has that, that sort of future mind. I think I do as well. And if you believe in something, you want to do it, then that enthusiasm comes across in what you're writing, and that's, people pick up on that, the fact that you've come out with something different, to them. But to us, it's just like, oh, we're in Scotland, let's write a song. You know what I mean?
Well, I love hearing the stories behind the music, and that's something that I know is part of your show. It's called Songs and Stories, and you'll be in Boston at the City Winery Boston on Thursday, February 9th, and also on the Cape at the Music Room Cape Cod on Friday, February 10th in Yarmouth. And I know I've been to that venue. It's a great, very intimate venue. It must be fun for you to be able to share these stories and songs with people who are big fans in intimate settings like that.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you don't get to do that when you're playing stadium gigs, But the thing is that we always did small gigs. That's where we got into the business, We were lucky if we could get gigs. But we always had that thing with the audience, It's just that gives the band or the artist the energy that you need to perform it properly. And actually, if you go out and do these kind of gigs and then you go in the studio straight afterwards, you're at your peak, you're at your best. So always, if you don't go out on the road, you're never going to continue, really. I think it's the main thing. And with an audience, small audience, you've really got that thing of having communication. And they love it. They love it too. They love all the little stories and the little. I try to keep the stories down a bit and just do mostly music. But sometimes you get carried away, or somebody might shout out a song, something like that. So it really is. You're not on your own up there, and that's what I like about it.
And it feels like you are, it doesn't feel like a performance. It feels like you're hanging out with friends, and they're just telling you stories behind their music. It's really an incredible way to present a show, and I'm sure that you will have there'll be people who are going to remember things that you might not even remember, shouting out from the audience.
Absolutely, they do. And reminding me of things, it's like a lot of times you forget your music yourself because you haven't played it for years, and somebody will go to the piano and play it perfect note for note. You go, oh, so things carry on. You don't even know about it. You don't know how. We're still a little bit not green like that. We don't know what the audience really thinks, but we get away with it. The main thing. We just do our thing, that's all.
Well, these are going to be some great shows. If people want to check them out, they can follow along with you. They can go to Facebook at DBF Laine, Laine, or they can follow you on Instagram at Denny Laine official page. And I hope that you have really great success with these shows and with the tour. And we look forward to hearing more music from you in the future.
Thank you very much. I'm just glad that people come out to these things. You're only as good as your last show. That's the way you got to think of it. And I'm looking forward to it, really, I am. But not so much the cold weather, but never mind. Because I'm in Florida at the moment. The sun's shining out there. But no, all seriousness, I love that part of the world. I've spent a lot of time up there on and off over the years. And, I'm looking forward to it. So see you there, guys. All right?
Thank you, sir. You have a great time, and we look forward to those shows.
Thank you. Take care.
That is Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Denny Laine. And again, if you want to follow along with him, you can go to his Facebook page at DBF Laine, Laine, or on Instagram at Denny Laine official page. And of course, you can get tickets to those shows, and you can go and hear all of those great stories and hear the great songs. I have to take a break. We'll be back in a few moments. Stay tuned.